Well, good morning once again, and welcome back to GBS Morning Extra. If you're just joining us, today we have with us in studio political analyst Rokin Okot, who is also a commentator who comes frequently to GBS TV. By now, of course, our viewer, you know Rokin Okot. And today we are going to talk about matters politics, but also we are going to talk about this issue of the school that collapsed in Dagoretti. Quite unfortunate incident there that happened in Dagoretti. And 7 students lost their lives. And I don't know, but it is funny because there's a time that we saw a lot of collapse, houses collapsing in Nairobi, but then for a moment there was some quiet. But now again we are starting to see such incidents. And this time, to be more precise, it is a school. And again, it is the, construction of the structures that is being questioned once again. But then what really is out there, or the truth of the matter is that any construction that takes place within the Nairobi County has to get an approval from the Nairobi County government or the city planner department. What do you make of this, Rokin?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to pass my condolences to the families of the children that succumbed to this tragic collapse of that classroom.
Sure.
And in 2016, I remember, I was here in Nairobi, and we were part of the team that responded to the building collapse in Huruma. And we were under the leadership of one Pius Masai, who was then the deputy director of NDMU, National Disaster Management Unit.
Yes.
And during that time, we saw the country put in place measures to try and address this issue. In fact, some buildings were demolished.
Yes.
Some buildings were marked by the NCA, National Construction Authority. And we saw some concerted effort from various stakeholders.
Yes.
Now, on the issue of yesterday's building, we must appreciate the work that was done by the responders, the responders of the tragedy, the Red Cross,
Yes.
the E-Plus ambulance, and even the community. We saw how the youths participated in search and rescue mission. And even yesterday, I was at the Kenyatta National Hospital, and I saw how the hospital quickly responded to the issue, and they resuscitated some pupils.
Yes.
And it actually speaks to the fact that there was some kind of multi-agency approach to this tragedy in this place.
Yes.
So the only issue that I saw during the response is that they had not set up an incident command system, whereby it was everybody talking, it was everybody doing his part, it was everybody throwing the debris.
There was no clear
clear line of command. That's why even you saw at the beginning, even the permanent secretary of education, at first, when they asked him with a certain journalist, he had nothing to say, because if they had set up a place or a tent to have an incident commander, whereby he could report and maybe be briefed in 5 seconds or so, you would have something to say to the public.
He could have some information to give to the public.
That's why you saw even there clearly was no line of command. Even the police officer could talk at one given time. A politician comes, the cameras follow him. The same time when the PS comes, it is like, and on the other side, even the Minister of Education is speaking on the other side. But if they could have a line of command, maybe they will address the media in an orderly manner, and they will direct the country in a way that will actually reflect the situation on the ground. Now, in disaster management, disaster management has phases. We have the pre-disaster and post-disaster phases. When we had incidences in 2016 of building collapses, actually everybody would expect that after those incidences, maybe the agencies or the institutions that are mandated to actually look
to respond
and look after the buildings, yes, and actually verify whether they followed the law. It seems they slept on their job, and it seems to be an attitude of Kenyans that we only respond to issues when they happen. We don't put in place measures that are sustainable, measures that will remain true to going to the future.
Yes.
So yesterday's incident was very, very sad, but we just thank the people who responded. The fact that there were over 70 students in the classes,
yeah,
and only 7 succumbed means that those people who responded have done a good job.
They responded quickly.
Yeah, they responded quickly.
Yeah. I think to what you've alluded to, Moses Nyakyongora, who is the secretary of the National Building Inspectorate, termed this incident as a criminal offense. What do you make of such a comment from such a senior official?
You know, that's why I started by saying the spirit of multi-agency must be respected. You know, you should not pass blame games to, yes, one individual,
yes,
or to a certain group of people. This is an accident, and in Kiswahili we say ajali haina kinga.
Sure,
so it happened, and the only thing I would say is that the contractors, maybe they used materials that are not good, substandard, and even you find out that in this region there are no public schools. Maybe the students, the private investors are trying to make money. As you know, the spirit of capitalism is primitive accumulation of resources.
I think the area MP John Kiare said that the school itself hosts about 800 pupils.
Yeah.
And then it is funny that in the entire Ngando ward, in an entire ward, there's only one school. And then it's a public school that is. And that's the reason why even the facility is not enough. And so they had to, cram up buildings in such a small area. And he's calling on the ministry Ministry of Education to help allocate land for this school.
The fact that there is a member of parliament in this place, and the fact that he's coming up to speak when there is a tragedy, then that one speaks volume to his sincerity towards this issue. Where has he been as a member of parliament? Today, the work of CDF is to handle matters of education and security. Now, if you tell me that in an entire ward there is no public school, where is the CDF money going? Where is the issues of, security can be defined in various ways. We have even security from illiteracy. Is security, food security, health security. But now if you are not addressing education, where are you paying bursaries to students who are going to public schools? How much are you giving them?
How much are you giving them?
So that one actually speaks volumes about the member of parliament. Now, to the question of the guy who was blaming some, of course somebody must be blamed, but it is not a one-man show. Because the issue of disaster management, the issue of response, the issue of even post-disaster reconstruction and even rehabilitation does not lie on one office. Because we have National Disaster Operations Center.
But there's the issue, before you quoted a Swahili saying, but then I would also like to, ask, wanasema ya kwamba usipoziba ufa utajenga ukuta.
Yeah.
Na ufa hapa ni basically, so to speak, the ensuring that the buildings that are being set up, that are being put up in those schools are up to standard. And there's the office of the, what do we call them? The inspectorate in the city, in the county government, which has to inspect the buildings and ensure that they are now ready for occupation, even in those schools, to allow students now to come in. But then did that happen?
When you, the office of the inspectorate must
because
work
that
hand
is
in
the
hand.
office that issues the licenses.
Yeah, must work hand in
occupation.
hand with the National Construction Authority, must work in hand with the National Disaster Operations Center, with the NDMU, with even the Red Cross, with even the lighting companies, with even the what, because the issue of security does not end with the structure of a building. There are so many things that must be taken into account. And you see, when I was in NDMU, we used to go around, because that's where I did my attachment. we went around various buildings trying to inspect the security of those buildings. And I found out that in a building, the fact that the National Construction Authority will give you a certificate, giving you authority to go and do some structure.
Or occupy a building that is finished.
Various institutions or agencies must also play a part. It is not a one-man show. It is a multi-agency procedure that must be followed to the letter. Because, for example, if you have a building, a nice building, that maybe the electrical appliances are poorly done, the next time we'll not be talking about a building collapse. We'll be talking about fire. Yeah. If you have a building that maybe has no fireplace, a building construction, because I expected to see, that's why I started a multi-agency spirit, whereby nobody blames another. We own up this issue as a country.
Collective responsibility.
Yes, collective responsibility. And then from there, we now set a bar for all buildings, not just in Nairobi, but in the entire country. Because in 2016, after the buildings collapsed here, others collapsed in Kisii. So it is not a Nairobi show. We should actually devolve these issues even to the rural areas, so that every person who wants to build a structure must actually come up, must follow the rules, the guidelines set up by one agency that actually directs him to do something about the building he's going to construct. But if we leave everything to the private investors who only want profit in schools or in any buildings, then we are losing the script. And that's the spirit of disaster management, multi-agency approach, whereby everybody is actually part and parcel of the process of saving lives and ensuring the security of citizens.
But as you say that, Rokin, we have buildings, and personally I've seen with my own eyes. I think around 2014, I covered a story around Roysambo area, just right behind TRM, where I think 4 people lost their lives. It was a construction site that was still ongoing, but then it collapsed before even the house was finished. Right next to that building that collapsed, there were some other buildings that had not met, the standards, and they were earmarked for demolition. After 3 days, when you went back there, while the collapsed site, the site of the collapsed building was they were still trying to, clear it up. Already these X's that were, normally painted XNCC, right? They're painted. And that building stands up to date. I'm sorry to say that on air, but that building stands up to date. What law, what bylaw or law was used to save that building from demolition?
The elephant in the house is corruption. We are living at a time, in an epoch whereby everybody is for himself. Everybody is fighting to get a kickback or to have something on the table. And that's why some buildings, some people seem to be sacred cows in the fight against corruption. Now, on the question of people actually having a mark of the NCA, yet they are continuing to construct, that question speaks to the kind of impunity and corruption that is entrenched in our society today. And secondly, some people, even the person who is going to seek for a house in such it means that he's not concerned about his well-being. He's not concerned about his life.
Some of these tenants don't know about this, Rokin. You find it was marked when it was still under construction. It is painted and the building is completed. You come there looking for a house. It's a beautiful house. You don't know about the ingenuity and everything.
It is said ignorance is no defense, my friend. If you go to a house that you are, because I'm very sure people know about National Construction Authority.
Not all.
Not all, yes, but people know. And even if they don't know, why would you settle in a house that is still under construction? What if some debris from up there hit your head? Sometimes we must actually prepare for the worst. Disaster preparation the phase of disaster preparation is a very important a phase of disaster management cycle, whereby everybody is entitled to plan, to prepare for any eventuality in case it occur, not just for himself, but even for the people around him. Yes. Now, if you go to such a building, you are actually endangering your life. It is very dangerous to settle in such a house. And the person who actually avoids or who does not, the person who continues to construct a building, yet the NCA have advised him against such actions, must actually be held culpable. And that's why I talked to the question of corruption and impunity in the country. It is about our attitude. We have taken corruption and impunity as something that is normal, and some people have decided that they cannot even follow the law. And that's the danger of living in a country that has very beautiful laws, yet the people are not true to this law.
If we talk to the matter of, keeping the law and, also knowing this information, I would also maybe one would want to challenge that there's someone also who bears the responsibility of informing the publics, like doing like civic education to the public. Such things, they're not new to us, especially when the rainy seasons come. You probably do gear yourself to hear that there have been building collapse, maybe in Huruma, God forbid, or Kibera or Kariobangi or somewhere like that. But then, if there is public, education, I would say, civic education on such matters that you're saying, like, just inform these people. Because some of these people, sometimes they would even blame, their economic situation. Ability, they say, ile nyumba bei rahisi. Bei rahisi, of course, when it collapses with you and your family, then you will start calling on the government to come and, serikali's idea. But there also needs to be someone responsible of giving civic education to the publics. But then, I'm sorry to say, but in a country like ours, things like this are just brushed aside and are left for the wananchi to find the information for themselves. Rokin is lucky enough to have participated in, come across institutions and learned this in school and also through experience. But then, how many people do you think have gotten the opportunity to meet with such organizations like you've done, Rokin?
Actually, unfortunately, public education, civic education has not been properly done, although it has been done. But it has not reached a very large population of the people.
Sure.
And especially those ones who are not privy to the safety measures.
And the bylaws and
the
and
emergency,
so on
even
and so forth,
the emergency response issues. People who have not been exposed to even how to behave or react when such eventualities occur. But we cannot entirely blame the government on some issues. We can't, because as a citizen, for example, in 2016, there was a lot of campaign on these issues. In fact, we saw in TV stations the leaders talking about safety measures. We saw, in fact, it was heated. There were heated arguments for a very long time.
Will you agree with me, Rokin, that those debates, they only are heated when there's an incident, and right? After the incident, everything is gone?
The only problem in this country, let me tell you, and I like directing the axe to the root of the problem. The only problem in this country on these issues is that we have so many institutions that are mandated to handle the same thing. For instance,
duplication of duties.
Yes, because, for instance, we have the National Operation Center in this country, which is mandated to even to mobilize resources towards disasters, eventualities, and even such things as building collapse.
Yes.
In 2013, the president gave a directive to form another organization called National Disaster Management Unit, NDMU, which does virtually the same thing. If you look at even the work of the police force, which acts as an enforcement, you will find that some of them blame the NDOC for not actually inspecting the buildings. yet they are supposed to enforce some laws. In fact, at that time, there was a bill in Parliament which was supposed to make this thing a multi-agency issue, and I don't know if that debate discussion actually ended. But it speaks to the question of duplicity of work, whereby we have so many institutions mandated to do the same thing, and now they are in wrangles. Instead of dealing with the issue, instead of working towards ensuring sustainability in some issues, not just in buildings, even in disaster areas, in floods. I saw you talk about drought. Instead of focusing on their mandates, they are in wrangles because they feel like this one will do the work because we are doing the same thing. This one will do the work because
so everybody passes the buck to
the other
person.
That's why we need to have a clear direction. Which office is mandated to do this work? Just like today we have a bicameral system of rulership, whereby
which again is at loggerheads.
At loggerheads,
who is more superior?
They don't know their role. Some of them don't know their role. They have reduced themselves into a supremacy battle, which is not helping the country. That's why we need to have some recommendations or some law that actually gives directions to the work of each and every institution in this country, if we are true to the institutions of the country. And any country that wants to develop cannot do so without proper functioning institutions which have clear-cut mandate to do their work. That one cannot happen if every institution is confused and doesn't know what to do when there is an eventuality as this.
But Rokin, in the case of this incident that we are now witnessing at Precious Talent Academy, one thing is clear. This is a government facility. This is a school. From the Ministry of Education, I believe there are inspectors who go around, the county education officers and so on and so forth. I think they are the ones who used to be the DEOs. And they inspect schools, not just about what the kids are learning, but also the conditions under which the children are learning. There's the Ministry of Education that also of public, and there's the public health sector, which also has its own inspectors who inspect the health conditions and the safety of children around. Do you want to tell me that no officer went to that school in all that period that the constructions were done, and that the Ministry of Education was not aware that there's a school in Ngando that students are learning under such conditions until this happens? Then the PS actually at some point comes there, and we saw Belio Kipsang, lack words to speak to the publics.
It baffled me that an entire ward has no public school. An entire ward. From where I come from, there are so many primary schools in one ward that even we are thinking of relocating them. Because, yes,
so many is how many?
We have, in my ward, that is Binyala West ward, there are more than 30 schools, public schools. And others are being constructed by the current member of parliament. Education is a basic need for all children. And you see, when you talk about...
It's a basic right as well, inscribed in the Constitution.
And even in the SDG, education, it is given a priority even internationally. How will you empower people without education? And when we are talking about education, these people pay taxes. Why don't we have public schools in that place? Why don't we have public primary schools? Why is it that even the member of parliament is crying in public, yet he has CDF kitty to handle the issue of education? You talked about inspection of... The only thing that baffled me is that somebody has been in this school, and he saw that this school iron sheet is holding some concrete things in the air, and students are actually learning in such infrastructure. That one really baffled me, because it actually speaks to the question of primitive accumulation of resources. Is it by design or by default that there are no public schools in this region, so that private investors can have private schools in this region to get money? Is it by default?
No.
So I think the government should swiftly.
And Cyrus Oguna coming in and saying that the government will cater for the medical expenses of the injured peoples, does that mean any comfort?
No.
Really?
What about the families that
Have lost
succumbed,
their
that have
children,
lost their children?
Mm-hmm.
The government is to blame.
Mm-hmm.
The government is to, and I saw the chairman of KNH.
Mm-hmm.
He was very elaborate. He did a very wonderful job yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He did his part to actually respond quickly with his professional team.
Yes.
He resuscitated others who had lost consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and he even went ahead to even give them food, the children.
Mm-hmm.
That on that end, the government has worked properly, because when we talk about government, we are not talking about the political leaders. We are
Yes.
also talking about the health sector, the leadership of the health sector.
Institutions, yeah.
Even, but on the question of education, the Minister of Education has failed. You cannot say that since independence up to today, you want to tell us in a press conference that we'll cater for the expenses after something has happened. Where have you been all this time? What have you not been inspecting the buildings? Sure. Where have you been taking books to this school? Do you have an education officer in this place?
And that was exactly my question, Rokin. All that time, there has never been any government officials, either from the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Education or from any other ministry, coming to the school for any other official business and have not been able to see the conditions under which the children were learning.
The government is guilty as charged. The member of parliament is guilty as charged. The area district education officer is guilty as charged. And they must come up with a hasty solution to address the question of education in this place. Because those people pay taxes. It is a crime against humanity to tax people without representing them. Representation does not mean that you have a member of parliament in parliament. It means getting services for the taxes you pay to the government. So these people are being taxed without representation, and that is a fact. If there is no public school in this region, then the government has failed, the member of parliament has failed, and in fact members of parliament have only two roles: education and security. If you cannot address education in one word, I wonder what you are doing in parliament.
If I may cut a slack to the member of parliament, there is also the ward rep.
The word rep.
Yeah.
And you see, like I wrote the question in Nairobi, but even in Kakamega, the MCA's role is limited to the three roles: the oversight, representation, and legislation in the county assembly. They are not given a kitty to cater for schools. Although,
but then they can't raise alarm.
The county has a role to play in education, on the education at the ECD level, but not at the public level. The public level, the question of education is a national function, and it squarely lies in the docket of the member of parliament.
I want you to hold that thought, and I want us to take a short break. But still, my point here is there is an MCA who went around this area calling for, asking for election. In that particular ward, in Ngando ward, I believe there's an area MCA who must have also slept on the job, as much as education is not,
I was told that around 250-something acres were donated to a school in this place. Yet now there is no land to build a public facility. School. Now, maybe the MCA and the member of parliament should actually go discuss this issue and help people come up with schools.
I want to hold that thought. If you're just joining us, you're watching GBS Morning Extra. And today we have with us in studio Rokin Okoth. We are discussing these matters of the Precious Talent Academy, the fatal incident that happened yesterday, Monday morning, where about 7 students or pupils lost their lives, and about 57 got injured in the incident. Quite a lot developing and coming up from this incident. And the more you scrutinize the situation, you realize that there's a lot to be done, not just by the government, but by the community at large. Well, viewer, we take a short break now. When we come back, we'll have more for you.